We present conditional motion diffusion in-betweening, a simple and flexible diffusion-based method capable of producing fast, controllable, and high-quality motions from sparse keyframes, partial keyframes, and text. Keyframe in-betweening is a long-standing problem with lots of applications in the industry, and deep learning methods have made advancements in this area. However, there still remains room for improvement. Works like robust motion in-betweening and NEMF do not support partial keyframes and require application-specific training. Some diffusion-based approaches focused on motion generation and control exist, although none of their focus is on in-betweening. MDM does not support sparse keyframes due to the data representation. GMD does not support full keyframes and is a complex two-stage model. OmniControl supports sparse keyframes, but it is intended for joint control. It also does not allow for flexible keyframe definitions and has a complex conditioning approach with long inference time. We introduce a fully conditional diffusion model with a simple architecture capable of producing diverse and high-quality motions from spatiotemporally sparse keyframes and text. Let's see how it works. In a simple scenario, our model receives 4 sparse keyframes randomly spaced in time. In our work, we define a keyframe as an arbitrary subset of joints at any time. We first replace the noisy motion sequence with the keyframes over the observation mask by performing a mask summation. Next, to further help the model distinguish between observed and unobserved parts of the input, we concatenate the observation mask with the mask summation. The output is a high-quality motion sequence that adheres well to the given keyframes while maintaining cohesion between the generated and the observed parts. Our approach also supports text conditioning as an additional control signal. Let's take a look at different outputs it is able to generate. Generated motions are high quality, both when we have consistent keyframes every 5 frames and also when they're further apart every 10 or every 20 frames. We actually don't even need these many keyframes, and we can go even more sparse. In these examples, we provide only 4 randomly placed keyframes, or 5 keyframes 40 steps apart, and the resulting motion is still clear and realistic. Our model is very capable. It is able to generate good karate kicks from sparse keyframes, and even perform yoga sun salutation moves flawlessly. While previous work does not focus on diverse outputs, in this example, our model generates diverse outputs, with some characters walking left, right, forward, or standing still. Our model also allows text conditioning. In this example, a motion conditioned only on the root trajectory is guided through text to either wave the hands above the head or toss a ball. Having the option to condition on partial keyframes allows us to guide the motion for VR applications, conditioning it with just the head and the 2 wrists. The resulting motions are high quality and showcase hard lower body movements like sitting with crossed legs or kicking mid-air. As another example of motion control, we can see that we are able to produce a full body motion guided by only the wrist. We ablated our conditional model with unconditional versions. Here are videos of 4 different models on keyframes 30 steps apart for a simple S-shaped walking motion. In each of these videos, the pelvis motion is projected on the floor. A pure imputation model that stops replacement at denoising step 1, as shown on the top left, completely ignores the input keyframes. Continuing replacement until the last step, output motion hits the keyframes exactly, but produces large jumps to the keyframes when they appear. With reconstruction guidance, we are able to improve the output motion and introduce more cohesion between the generated and the observed parts, but the output still demonstrates some shifts over the observed keyframes and is not smooth. Our fully conditional model is able to handle this motion with no problems. In the future, we would like to ground our kinematic motions with physics to remove all possible foot skating and ground penetration. Furthermore, our keyframe selection during training is highly general and flexible, but focusing on task-specific selections similar to what is used in practice would likely improve the results. In conclusion, our model allows sparse keyframes, partial keyframes, single joints, or text conditioning, and outputs high-quality, cohesive, and diverse motions. Thank you for your attention. Please check the paper for more details. Here we show some qualitative comparisons with the baselines. The first task is to track the given route trajectory shown projected on the ground plane. MDM uses only imputation to enforce constraints, and it fails to follow the observed trajectory. Prior MDM, which is the fine-tuned version of MDM for root joint control, achieves better performance. GMD uses inference time imputation and guidance for conditioning. Here, it exhibits significant foot sliding. OmniControl is a recent method that adds a learnable module to MDM to encode the keyframes and performs repeated guidance to further enforce the keyframes. Here, it sometimes drifts away from the desired trajectory. Our method is designed for full keyframe in-betweening. On the root joint trajectory task, it tracks the observed trajectory well and without much foot skate. Most baselines show worse performance on more dynamic examples like karate-style fighting. MDM is laggy. Prior MDM generates an overly smooth sample which looks sluggish. GMD demonstrates extreme sliding. OmniControl is dynamic but does not adhere well to the trajectory. Our method is dynamic and follows the trajectory the best while showing minimal foot skating. For sparse keyframe in-betweening, we compare our work to OmniControl. Here, we revisit the same prompt-free trajectory tracking example shown earlier, but now with sparse keyframes, observed every 20 frames. Compared to our method, OmniControl demonstrates foot sliding and does not adhere well to the target keyframes. Here is a more dynamic dancing example. Again, OmniControl demonstrates a lot of foot sliding and does not match the keyframes well, as compared to our method. Next, we provide more text-conditioned examples. As shown before, text can be used as an additional condition to control the generated examples. We use equal classifier-free guidance weight of 10 for all of these examples. With a classifier-free weight, we can control the amount of emphasis on the text condition. Sometimes trying to fully conform to both the spatial and textual conditions will lead to unnatural results. In the demonstrations, with weight 10, character better performs waving, but the final motion is more jittery compared to the lowest weight. Our work comes with a number of limitations. The main limitation comes from out-of-distribution conditions. Since the keyframe selection is completely random at training time, the model hardly ever sees certain keyframe patterns and performs poorly when presented with these. As an example, method fails on the clip-in-betweening task, where the first and last 5 frames are observed. In all 3 samples, method fails to smoothly interpolate between the observed chunks and adds a sliding so that character reaches the ending keyframes. On the other hand, method performs flawlessly on the same example when presented with 10 keyframes randomly placed in time. Our method may treat overly sparse keyframes as noise and ignore them at inference time. Here we demonstrate 3 samples by providing the root and feet joints for 10 randomly placed keyframes. Model fails to track the root and feet trajectory and foot sliding is observed in most of the samples. Our method is not physically grounded, and thus resulting motions still exhibit some minor foot skate and motion jitter. This could likely be addressed with an appropriate foot skate or smoothness loss, or by tracking the generated motions with a physics-based simulator. Thank you for your attention.